Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Armenian Music Project. I have someone I've known for a long time. I think first time I met him, he was probably 12 or 13, maybe even younger. Osheen
Something like
Manukyan
that.
is here with us. Welcome, Osheen.
So good to be here. Thank you for having me, Tigran.
How long has it been, Osheen?
It's been a while. I think, as I mentioned earlier, the last time we saw each other in person was at your wedding. That was probably like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
4 years ago. 3
Yeah.
years. Yeah. So that was the last time, and then before that, we saw each other a handful of times, but I remember, when I was maybe 12, 13, you were conducting an ensemble at Lark, and it was a small orchestra, and those were some of my most they were my fondest memories as a young cellist. I think in general my times at Lark were really great. It was a seed was planted there. So
yeah, Lark is a special place for so many of us, and I still keep in touch with so many friends that are from Lark, and I'm sure you do as well. Since I think you were born in the U.S., on this program, I like to know a little bit about the background, maybe a little bit about your parents, where they came from, and how they ended up in the U.S. maybe, and what city you were born in.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I was born in Glendale, California. And my parents, so my dad is from Armenia originally. He was born in Yerevan. And my mom is from Iran. She was born in Iran. And when she was 3, her family came to Armenia. I think it was Abovyan. And so she grew up there, and then in the, I want to say, late 80s, early 90s, they both kind of immigrated to the United States at the same time, but they hadn't met each other yet. They met here in the States, and yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah. So Osheen, one thing that was awesome to see a couple of years ago, I think it was about a year ago or two, I saw you on From the Top. Well, I heard you on From the Top. How was that experience, and how did you have the opportunity to do that? Because that's a national show that's broadcasted all over the place. How did you end up on that show, and how was the experience?
Yeah, it was great. The way that happened was basically I heard from teachers at Colburn. I was at Colburn for a while in the prep program, and I heard from teachers and friends that they're coming and there are auditions happening. So I basically auditioned for that, and they came actually to Colburn in one of the halls, and and then after that, they called me back, and I got to chat with the team, and it was really nice. They were really friendly people, and that was in that show. We did 2 shows in Disney Hall. One of those shows, the audience was like all young, like middle school, high school kids, like from all over. I think it was LA County. They all came, and it was nice. It was wonderful. I played with Chris O'Reilly and Bing Wang from the LA Phil. We did an arrangement of it was Spring from Piazzolla's Four Seasons. It was an arrangement for piano trio, and that was really fun.
Well, you're no stranger to auditions. You auditioned a lot in your senior year in high school to get into college, from what I remember, and you got into one of the top schools probably in the world. I remember talking to Jan Robertson, who's a pianist and conductor from, now he lives in Florida, but I remember him talking about Juilliard, and he said, oh, that's probably one of the few schools that's actually a household name. That's what he said at the time. Well, you're at Juilliard. How was that experience of auditioning? And just for younger musicians than you, because you're a young musician, but for
Mhm.
musicians who are a couple of years younger than you, thinking about auditioning to Juilliard, just walk us through the process of what it took to audition.
Yeah, so I auditioned at a few schools. Some of them were NEC in Boston, New England Conservatory, Manhattan School of Music, the Eastman School of Music, and there was Juilliard, of course. But that my Juilliard audition was actually not at all what I expected, because that I went into it, I was like, I'm nervous, and I went in, and it was the funniest audition I had a whole slew of auditions, and that was the most hilarious one. This is just my personal experience. It might be, the vibe might be a little different. Maybe the cello faculty is like a little different. I don't know. But my experience was, I walked in, and immediately I felt like I was kind of like in my living room. Everyone was like laughing, cracking jokes. I played a little bit, and one of the faculty members, I'm not going to mention names here, but he was like, "Oh, very nice." So, and he said it in like a kind of funny way, so I started laughing. And at the end, so I played a bunch of pieces that were requested, and then in the end, so they said, "Thank you, you can go. Thank you for coming." And I said, "Thank you." I got up. I was on my way out the door with my pianist who played with me. Both of us, we were on our way out, and then my future teacher, who I study with now, Tim Eddy, he was on the jury, and he said, "Wait one moment. Could we hear the Bloch?" It was one of the pieces that were requested was a lyrical piece, and Mr. Eddy, he told me that David Sawyer, the famous cellist who was on the faculty at Juilliard years back, he put that piece. He put that sort of that lyrical piece requirement on the audition list as like an opportunity for the prospective students. They play concerto and sonata and all that stuff, and he just wanted there to be a piece where you can just let go and just be yourself and make beautiful music without all the where there's less pressure. So the piece that I prepared for that category was a prayer by Ernest Bloch. And so I was like, okay, I guess my audition's not over. We both sat back down, and then one of the other faculty members, he was like, "Bloch." he I don't know, he just yelled that out. I don't know why. He thought it was funny. I thought it was funny. And anyway, so I finished playing that, and that the rest was, that's it. Yeah.
Wow. And what does it take prior to even getting to the audition? How many hours did you practice? What it took mentally, physically? What does it take to audition? Such a big audition, because you're preparing a lot, and then you have to fly out to a different city because you're from LA. You were in LA at the time. You fly out to a different city, right? And that whole experience mentally, how does it feel?
It was of course there was a lot of preparation going into that. I think for any young musicians watching, maybe someone who's in high school, I'd say, someone who's considering, who wants to go into music and wants to go through that process, I'd say just to treat it like a performance, as opposed to an audition, because just imagine that you're playing for you're playing for your family or for your friends. And actually I did that a lot in preparation for that, because you practice, you're in your four corners, you're in your room all by yourself. And but I think it's very important to practice performing also. And whatever that may be, you might play for your family at the next family gathering or something like that. Anything just to get that experience, because the chemicals going through your body when you're in performance mode is very different from when you're alone in your room. So I did a lot of that. Yeah, and that was very helpful.
Wow.
Yeah.
Switching gears a little bit, since most people listening to someone who's young studying classical music might say, well, Osheen, do you listen to anything else? Do you play any other genres? Do you listen to any other genres than classical music? Do you?
That's a great question. At Juilliard, I started hanging around a lot of the jazz kids, and that's a totally different culture, and I love it so much. And they call each other cats, like that. The vibe is so different, and especially these last, I don't know, I guess it's been 2.5 years. Right now, I'm in my third year of undergrad. During this time in college, I started listening to a lot more jazz, and I find I admire jazz musicians so much, because they're able to tap into like this completely different part of your brain that as classical musicians we don't use as much, and that's why they're so good at improvising. There's this improvisatory element to their music, and when they perform, and it's just great to see them in action, and I just love that kind of music. Yeah.
Wow. Since this is an Armenian show, it's Armenian specific questions a little bit, but is there an Armenian artist, whether it's in classical music or jazz or any genre, that you like, or maybe you've never met in person, but you would love to collaborate with, play with, or even just hang out with?
Yeah, I think some Armenian musicians that I really admire. There's Sergei Khachatryan, of course. His recording of the Bach sonatas and partitas is one of my personal favorites. I think it's fabulous playing, and just in general, he seems like a really cool person. As far as I understand, he's also into like go-karting is the wrong word. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, well, I know he's into cars and race cars and other things. I don't know exactly what it is, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
He just seems like a really, really great person, as well as being a profound artist.
Yeah.
I also really love Tigran Hamasyan. He's wonderful. The way he spices up like Armenian traditional folk songs, and he presents them in a jazz style, like in a new light. I think that's wonderful. Yeah.
Osheen, is there an Armenian composer, and this is a two-part question, an Armenian composer and a non-Armenian composer, but that you like and you just wish they wrote a cello concerto or a cello sonata, any composer that's Armenian and also non-Armenian?
Oh, that is really great question. I can start with the non-Armenian one. I think every cellist would say that it's a pity that Mozart didn't write anything for the cello. Of course, we're blessed with his chamber music, the string quartets and the divertimenti, string trios, and all sorts of wonderful chamber music, but nothing for solo cello or a sonata or a concerto, or nothing like that. In Now, Armenian composers, yeah, I would have to get back to you on that one. I would have to think about that one, because right now I can think of Armenian composers who have written for the cello. There's Hovannes, Alan Hovannes, Khachaturian. Also, he wrote two pieces for cello. He wrote the cello concerto, also a concerto rhapsody. Yeah.
Osheen, so what's the daily routine for a young cellist who aspires to be possibly a soloist, a chamber musician, maybe sometime maybe even an orchestral musician? What's your daily schedule? What do you do on a regular day? Practice schedule, your routine. What do you do?
Routine wise, I like to start the day, just warm up your body, stretch. Play some scales, play an etude, just get reacquainted with the instrument. After you go to sleep, you wake up in the morning, it's cold. That's always a good thing to do in the morning. Yeah.
how many hours do you spend practicing? I'm sure it depends on the day, but
of course it depends on the day, with school and everything. These days, there's a lot of time. I try to practice about 4 hours a day, but of course, there's with school and the fast-paced lifestyle, you have to go here, you have to this class, that, and of course it can be more or less. But I try, especially since there's a lot of time these days. I feel like this is a very good time for musicians, because we can really zero in and like for me personally, like these days I've been diving into musical projects that are maybe would have been a little daunting during like a fast-paced school year, but now I think I can challenge myself and learn pieces that I've always wanted to play, but it's I can't do it right now, there's too much going on. So now is a great time.
Yeah,
I think even though it's difficult, we're alone, we're separated from each other. But yeah, and another thing I would say, that this is something my teacher Tim Eddy has told me in a lesson one time, and I'll never forget it. I was talking with him once, and he said, we have a lot to learn from amateur musicians. He asked me, do you know what the word amateur means? And I thought about it for a second. I realized I don't really know what it means. And he said, it's French for one who loves. And he said that today the word amateur unfortunately has a negative connotation. And in the music world, one could use that word to describe a player who's maybe not as polished. But he said, there are people who have other jobs, they're doctors, school teachers, accountants, whatever. They have their jobs, and they come home at the end of the day and they make music for the love of it. And he said, as professionals, because we do this thing every single day, or we might have a bunch of concerts back to back. Professionals can sometimes get jaded sometimes. And he said, never forget why you're doing this in the first place. It's because you love it, and never lose that. So I think that would be something for young musicians to really consider, because it's a lot of work, and you're doing it every day, but never forget why you're doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, since we're speaking of young musicians, when you were even younger than you are now, what's the first memory of a piece that you heard? And also, what's the first cello piece that you remember playing?
Well, my earliest experiences with the cello were, and this is before I played the cello, they were Yo-Yo Ma CDs in the car. My parents, my parents are not musicians, but they love music, and they would put Yo-Yo Ma CDs in the car. It was probably the Bach suites, or I remember hearing him live. I think it was probably the Elgar Concerto. I was really little. I remember that very. I remember that very well, and how much I loved the sound, and I loved his energy. He's this larger than life personality, and like he makes eye contact with you, and even though he might not be looking at you directly, but you feel like he's very connected to the people in the audience. But first cello piece that I played, again, I don't remember. It might have been a sonata by Breval or something, Baroque sonatas, things like that. Yeah, that's probably what it was.
I'm almost certain we're gonna do one of these again in the future, but 5 years from now, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? I know it's a short time. It might seem long for now. It might seem like far away from now, but 5 years is quite short. Where do you see yourself? What do you plan on doing in the next 5?
So one of my passions is chamber music. I would love to play in a quartet or a piano trio. That's one of my dreams. The repertoire I adore, and I feel like growing together with a group, which becomes your family, essentially, because you get to know each other really well, and not just on a personal level, but even deeper than that, musically. And other than that, I really want to start entering some competitions, like when I'm maybe like towards the end of my studies, or when I'm out of school. I want to give that a shot, and use that as an opportunity to gain even more experience just playing concerts, because that's why we do competitions. It's to hopefully to get to play concerts after that. People, that it's a great way of presenting yourself to the musical community. So we'll see what happens. It's hard to know where things exactly are going to go. But yeah.
Well, your generation, if you ask me, I probably, for the most part, would know a lot of the musicians in my generation, especially those of Armenian background. In your generation, based on the festivals that you've participated in, maybe friends from Juilliard, are there Armenian musicians out there of your generations pursuing a classical music career?
Oh yeah, definitely. And when there's an Armenian in your community, you know them very well, or you'll spot them immediately, and get to know them very well. I remember I met a pianist at Juilliard, Armen Sarkisian is his name. I remember we were it was in some hallway. We were there's a kiosk where you check out practice rooms, and we were swiping our cards, just waiting. I'm looking at this guy. He's like, he has to be Armenian. Like, there's no way. Beard and everything, the eyebrows, everything. Like he has to be Armenian. So Armenians, we find each other very easily. There haven't been a lot of Armenians at Juilliard specifically, but the few that have been, we stick together, and it's so amazing because we're such a small people, but we have a lot to offer to the world, and specifically like in the world of arts, there are so many wonderful people. So yeah.
And finally, being an Armenian in diaspora, a young Armenian in diaspora, especially with the recent events, I know you've participated in a couple of projects. Just your feelings on the current events, and what can young Armenians do beyond what they've done, and what you've done and what you've seen, maybe just some of your thoughts and experiences in recent times.
Yeah, the recent times have been, it's been difficult for everyone, everyone is constantly, keeping up with the news, and recently things haven't been so great for us, but I think what we can do is share and explain and inform our non-Armenian friends about what's going on. I mean, that's the most important thing, because if we don't tell them, if we don't tell people what's going on, who's going to do it for us? So it's our responsibility to teach people and explain to people what's going on. And as artists, there are some wonderful projects happening, fundraisers, benefit concerts, and that I've taken a part in, and that I can't go and fight for my country right now. That's I'm not going to pretend that I can just go and do that. But what I can do as an artist is that, and I'm going to do what I can.
Yeah. Osheen, it's been a pleasure having you on. It's so great to see you. I hope I see you in person.
Great seeing you too, Tigran.
Anything else you want to add before we end?
No, I have nothing else to add right now, except that it was a great pleasure seeing you again. The circumstances are very different. It's a very different time that we're living in, but the energy between us, it's still there. And that's the most important thing, even though we're behind a screen. But yeah, it was so great seeing you. Great to be on the show.
Say hi to your parents. I miss you all.
I will.
See you soon. Take care.
Yeah, you too.